April 6th, 2011, a different kind of homelessness. Big Cat Rescue in Tampa, Florida frequently gets calls about bobcats who have been hit by cars. It has always been a challenge to have the caller properly identify the animal. While every animal life is precious, Big Cat Rescue's focus is on saving exotic cats. Once the caller has described the cat sufficiently, the rescuers hit the road with a van full of nets, carriers, humane traps, flashlights, bug spray, blankets, and high hopes of bringing the bobcat back alive. Sometimes, though, the cat either cannot be located or, even if spotted, cannot be caught. That was the case when a call came in on March the 29th of 2011. When rescuers and licensed rehabilitator Jamie Veronica, Gail Ingham, and Chris Poole arrived on the scene of an accident that had happened on the exit ramp of Interstate 75 in Tampa, the caller returned to the scene to help point them in the right direction. The cat was nowhere to be seen, but as the caller relayed what he had seen earlier, the bobcat ran from the woods back into the busy exit ramp. Rescuers ran desperately to corral the badly injured bobcat back off the roadway. Jamie barely missed him with her net and made one last leap after him as he dove into the briars. The thorny underbrush was so thick that she just hung there, trapped in mid-flight. But the tears that sprang to her eyes were not because of the thousands of rivulets of blood trickling from her gashes, but because she knows that you usually only get one swipe at netting a wild cat, and she had missed this one. Later on the way home, she broke down and sobbed, saying, "I feel like it's all my fault. I should have been faster. I was so startled that he was in the middle of the road, and I didn't want him to get hit again. I could see the whole side of his face was caved in, and the blood. I think he lost an eye on one side." The scene played over and over again in her head, but no matter how much it haunted her, there was no way to set the clock back, and if she could, it would have been much further reset to avoid the initial accident. More rescuers arrived on the scene, and the search through the thick brambles and palmetto-thick forest went on without a glimpse of the bobcat until about 9 p.m. Chris thought he saw a shimmer of brown fur, but it moved quickly past him, leapt up onto a log, and then disappeared completely. The searchers tried to circle around the area, but it was dark, and the woods were full of trash. Pieces of plastic and broken bottles reflected back millions of false illusions of eyes. Each had to be investigated to rule out what was garbage and what may be a one-eyed cat. The bobcat was not sighted again, and the search party, bleeding from battling briars and mosquitoes, decided around midnight to call it quits and try again at first light. The next morning, Jamie and Carole drove out to the scene as day broke and resumed the search. A humane trap with fresh mice had been set where the bobcat had last been seen, but the hazy morning light revealed that it had not been successful. The stress of having been so close and yet not being able to catch the bobcat on the first try had Jamie up all night, but she was determined to find the cat on this morning and get him to the hospital. Hours passed, and she saw just the slightest hint of brown fur in the thick palmettos, but despite all of her skill and practice as a wildlife tracker, she could not get close enough to see if it was a bobcat, or a rabbit, or a rat, or a squirrel, or a raccoon. It disappeared instantly, and not another sound was heard. The only evidence of life were the discarded clothes and food containers that belonged to the homeless who live in this small patch of woods. Those who hate Big Cat Rescue for the work we are doing to end the trade and exploitation of big cats have filed a 22-page false complaint with USDA. The inspectors arrived at the sanctuary to do an investigation, so rescuers lost the rest of the day dealing with the nonsense alleged against them by the bad guys. The end result was another perfect USDA inspection, but at the cost of precious hours of daylight. As soon as the investigation was over, rescuers raced back out to the scene of impact and resumed their search, but to no avail. Thursday, rescuers arrived on the scene early, but knew they were only going to have a short time to search as there were ominous clouds blowing in and tornado watches in the area. The humane trap was still empty, and even the rats who were left outside of the trap were untouched. The first night, when the bobcat had tried to recross the road, he may have been heading to a larger patch of woods that surely held more prey than this abandoned island of trees. It was decided to move the trap into this more densely wooded area. Off-roading in the rain, Carole recounts, I noticed several homeless people coming and going and thought I would wait for them to pass before hauling the huge trap out into the dense cover. It was raining harder and harder, though, and people kept coming and going on foot and on broken-down bicycles. A woman was working the traffic nearby with a sign that said, Family in Need. Most of them looked like the life had just been kicked out of them. Most of them plodding along, heads down, trying not to make eye contact. Others, who seemed less worn down by their plight, found Big Cat Rescue logos in gold on the side of the black Dodge Hemi to be of great interest, since it might mean a loose pet tiger in their area. I wondered how this bobcat could share space with so many homeless people. This was the only sizable plot of ground that had any natural foliage and couldn't have been more than 20 acres. A bobcat needs 5 square miles of territory to survive, but there was nowhere near that available here. She must have become very accustomed to seeing people come and go, but they did not seem to know that she shared their plight. What all of these precious souls had in common is that they have lost their homes. They are tenaciously holding on to what meager existence they can eke out of life, while trying their best to keep their independence and dignity intact. The storms raged on through the night, dumping 4 inches of water in many places. The tornadoes flipped semi-trailers on the interstate and airplanes that had come in for the annual Sun and Fun fly-in. Saturday, Chris organized a large search party via Facebook, and Jamie assisted by driving them via carpool back to the site. The plan is to have 20 to 25 people surround the area and move in from every direction to herd the bobcat into the center of the small patch of woods. With enough hands, eyes, and nets, they hope to bring this one back alive. Yeah, we never did find that cat. If you find these stories to be of any interest to you or helpful in any way, please like them, share them. It really helps.